I brought my father that from California.
Okay, any other guests? Okay, Stephanie brought Joseph, Patrick, and I'm just going to abbreviate it to JP, so because that's easier to write down here. So, and is that all? Okay, we're whipping through this stuff. Any board committees? Do we have any board committees? Meeting. All right. So we have no club meetings. Okay, so we do have some announcements, and let's see. Chuck, you go first. He's going to talk about the barbecue, I think.
Okay, the barbecue is 2 weeks from today, the 6th, so I urge you all to attend. Bring your families, and starts at 5:30. Committee members, meeting at the park at 2 o'clock for setup and everything. And for the annual trip to Ferndale to get the fish, those that want to go meet at Joy's Bakery, change. Josh is changing it to Joy's Bakery, 8 o'clock, and then we'll go from there. So hopefully everybody will be here and want a good time.
Okay, so now Doug, give that to Nick, and Nick has put educational video together on how to play golf. I think it should lower your scores by 2 or 3 points, so I think you should pay attention to it.
I can't take credit for this. It's actually Mark that put this together, so go ahead, Mark, hit play, and I'll have my little announcement after this riveting one. There you go. we did have the district golf tournament on Friday, and our club read the rules. It said to tee off from the blues. So Carl, Daryl, Joe, and I teed off from the blues the whole round. Shot 16 under par. We were the best team from the blues. Nobody else followed the rules, teed off from the so we got beat by 6 strokes. But I was the only one to break a window. That's the
Well, we would have definitely had 24 under if I was playing. Because I don't count anything after the first shot. And it's easy. So, anyhow, that was pretty amazing. You know, we actually have some talented people in this group that could put that film together. It also means that somebody actually took pictures at the thing. So, Mark, who gave me the video stuff to put together?
Right.
There you go. We got a one-man team over here. If you need something on the side, he probably works for half price after hours.
It looks way more impressive than it actually is, isn't it?
It would be for me. So, what are we doing next, Doug? Are we gonna have a raffle, or are we gonna do something?
You got the,
Oh, I have the agenda. Just a second. I gotta put my glasses on.
Remember?
I think it's a raffle.
Yeah, it's not time though. What are we doing this? You know, we're early.
Are there any more announcements?
Any more announcements? There you go. We're gonna do a raffle and then Sergeant of Arms. So that's you two guys over there, and you got plenty of time.
We have, it was horrible. Are there any other lawyers in here? Attorneys? We need an attorney to raise your hand. Where is he? You need to pay $5 because I was going to hurt Bill McCann because he always says amen before the prayer's over, like wanting to get it over. So, but he's not here, so you go pay for him. I got a question for Rotarian. Let's see. For $5, you don't have to pay. You don't have to pay if you can answer this question. What is a lip sync? A lip sync.
I don't do it.
You know what it is?
Yeah.
You can't answer. That's $5. Okay, lip. It's going to be in a lip sync.
You want just $20?
Yeah. Take $20. It's coming out when?
Still this weekend.
Yeah, and Klinger's going to be in. It's exciting. It's a good thing to have happen. How many people are glad the smoke's gone? Believe me, it will be gone. Wow. Or you give us a couple bucks. Who wants to pay money from just getting back on vacation? We got Sims's, who else? Haley, Teague, paid a couple bucks and just got back from vacation. And that's all I have. How about Happy Bucks?
Yeah, happy birthday.
Yeah, I got a couple of Happy Bucks. Echoing here. Far this way. I've been missing off to Italy, Spain, Eastern Mountains. Had a great time. I appreciate everybody's help in the foot race. We raised $6,900 for the scholarship, so I was going to put in another $100 and we'll make it an even $7,000.
There you go.
Thanks, everybody.
More Happy Bucks?
Happy Five for getting to go on vacation to Ocean Shores. I recommend going to Rotary clubs elsewhere. I went to Aberdeen Rotary, and the program was Miss Grace, Harbor County, and I got my picture with her.
All right.
Well, this is just a question. Last week I wasn't able to clean up my recycle bin disappeared. Does anybody know where it went? it's only the fourth one, I'll buy a fifth one.
Thank you for your dedication.
So I got 5, I guess we'll call it flip for it bucks, because heads we could settle today and tails we may not. So that'll be all I'll have left by the time I'm done with the teachers. So there you go.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay, so we did really well there. I think they might have set a record for the month, but you know, it helps when Travis gives you like $300 for firewood that goes into their account. So I think they did pretty good even without that. So first of all, I want to thank everybody that helped do that tree. John wanted to make sure I mentioned that, if this Rotary Club will do anything, anywhere, anytime, and it makes it really easy to be in charge of a project when that's the attitude. So that's the good news. We got Doug, you're going to come up here and do the introduction. I don't know why. I could probably do it. You want? I mean, you know, it is Mark Venn that is the presentation today, and
Hey, Mike,
yeah.
may I interrupt? I got a happy $5. I'm gonna go ahead and do this. Okay? Because if Steve and Josh and Dan don't want to do it, I'm going to go ahead and do it. And first of all, I got to thank the Snelson companies for the boat that we went out on up at Sitka, and thanks Steve for helping out, and Brian Gansky also. But Dan Hoggett and Josh, Steve and I, and Dan's son, Jake, we went out Sitka about a week ago, and we went out about 20-some miles, and we did very well. It was pretty damn rough, but we got 59 silvers, 5 halibut, 4 kings, somehow a chum got in there, and Steve and Josh got 2 gigantic. I won't tell you how big they were because I might have been, one of them might have been a little bit too big, but again, thanks to Snelson Companies for getting to use their boat. And that skipper up there knows what he's doing, obviously, when you catch that many fish. So thanks.
Okay, so now we're going to go to the program. I guess we're supposed to let early leavers leave, but I think this is going to be a great program. Mark Venn took a trip down the River of Doubt. I think it might be a different name than that, but it's in South America, and he's going to tell us about his adventures down there. And Mark has been a great asset to this club, and there's a few people that I would say that weren't born in Sedro-Woolley, but somehow became Sedro-Woolley true and blue. So Mark Venn.
Well, I'm going to hold this microphone, but I guess thanks for having me here today. I've been fortunate to do a little traveling since I retired about 5 years ago, and if you remember, one of my first trips that I did a presentation on is I went with a group of people and my wife to Tanzania, to Africa, and spent 2 weeks there, and had a great time. In fact, I know Dan and Phil just came back from Africa, so I kind of expect them to be doing a presentation too, right, Phil?
We were told to.
Okay, good, yeah. I think that's a requirement. But anyhow, I've been to quite a few places. This is the most unique place I've ever been to, and I'll explain more where I was and what we did and all that. There were 12 of us that went on this adventure to South America, particularly to the country of Brazil, but also to the Amazon or Amazonia area of Brazil, which is in the northern part of Brazil. When I talk to people in America, they know very little about Brazil. And I still know very little, but I also know that I know a lot more than I used to, now that I've been there on a 2-week trip. So we were there 14 days. There were, you'll see a picture of the whole group. We spent most of the time on a boat on a river called the Rio, and in Portuguese they don't pronounce R, it's Rio, H-I-O, but Rio Negro, which is a tributary of the Amazon. And the Rio Negro is the largest tributary. It's one of the oldest rivers in the world. It starts all the way up in Colombia and then works its way down and meets the Amazon near a city called Manaus, which is the city we flew into. And the Amazon River is, I don't know how to describe it except to say it's immense. If you take, in terms of volume, it's the largest river in the world. If you take the next 3 largest rivers in the world and the volume they have and put it together, they're half the size of the Amazon. During the flooding season, the wet season, which is when I was there in June, the Amazon is 40 feet higher than it would be later on. So kind of remember that when you see some of these slides. The Amazon in some places is over 100 miles wide. It has an island in it that is 200 miles long and 30 miles wide. The Rio Negro, where we went, has the largest archipelago in the world in fresh water. So it's huge. Water is everywhere, and that's how people get around. So this is the Brazilian flag. I did learn while I was there, the green stands for the rainforest, the natural forests they have. They have an immense amount of forest. By the way, Brazil is as big as the United States. Did you know that? Without Alaska. It takes about 6 hours to fly across Brazil from where we were down to Rio de Janeiro or Sao Paulo, and it's a huge country. The gold on the flag stands for the mineral resources. They have great mineral resources there. And in the middle is a constellation of the sky, supposedly when they declared their independence from Portugal. Okay, so just a quick, how did I get there? First of all, we flew from Seattle to Miami, which is about a 6-hour flight if you haven't done it before. Waited there a few hours and then flew another 6 hours to Manaus. And as you can see, Manaus is in the northern part of South America, but we flew over Cuba, all the way down, followed the Atlantic coast, and ended up in Manaus. Manaus is a city of 2 million people. And you go, well, I haven't heard of it before. Well, it's one of those places that it's a city, but then anything else outside the city is very primitive and with very few people. So, make my arrows here. So here's an example, or here's a map of Brazil with Manaus right here. The Amazon River empties into the Atlantic Ocean. If you were to go on a boat from Manaus, which is really the only way you can get down the Amazon River, it would take you 7 days by boat to get from Manaus down there. You can see Brazil is the largest country in South America. It borders every other country except for Chile and Ecuador. And so if you were to fly from Sao Paulo to Manaus, it's about a 6-hour flight. And its capital is Brasilia. It's actually a city that was built, actually opened up as a capital in 1960. So at one time, Brazil was discovered and colonized by the Portuguese. Brazil is the largest Portuguese-speaking country in the world. It also has the largest Catholic population of any country in the world. 75% of the people are Catholic. So where I was up here, where we were up there. And this is pretty much the route we took. So if you look at this Amazon or Amazonia here area, all these rivers feed into the Amazon River. And the river we were on is called the Rio Negro. The reason it's called the Rio Negro, you'll see, is because of the color of the water. The water actually comes out of Colombia, up here in Guyana as well, and comes down, and being one of the oldest rivers in the world, it doesn't have much sediment to bring down with it. So the color of the water is actually the color of tea. It's a tea color. And while we were there, we used that water to shower with, to use in the bathroom on the boat and that. And you never thought it was clean because it always came out that color. The water was about 85 degrees. The temperature outside most of the time was about 90 degrees with about 90% humidity. So it was amazing how hot it was. I've never been in a place so hot in my life. And you could be just standing there and you just sweat. You just sweat. So, like I said, the language in Brazil is Portuguese. And if you look at the Portuguese language, I knew a little bit of Spanish and thought I could get by. This is a welcome mat. This was on the boat, but the language is somewhat similar to Spanish, but in other ways it's very different. Manaus, the first day was there, we went out to a canopy or a jungle and climbed the tower and looked back on Manaus. This is the main city here of Manaus. As you can see, it's quite a large city. You can also see what the canopy looks like. And the Manaus is on the Rio Negro and Amazon River where they come together. It has a beach there. The beach is a man-made beach right on the Rio Negro River. And as you can see, this area of the city is very modern. The beaches were very clean. I'll show you later where actually on my last day there, we got off the boat and I went to a soccer match, on the World Cup soccer match on an amphitheater right above this beach. But this is the main beach, really the only beach in Manaus. The tower you see there is our high-rises. China has developed and done a lot of development in Brazil, and that actually is owned by the Chinese. It's condominiums there. So why did Manaus exist? Because of a thing called rubber. In the late 1800s, they discovered rubber could be tapped, a sap could be coming from a rubber tree, which is pretty prevalent in that part of the Amazon. And basically, for about 40 years, they took advantage of the fact that industrialized nations needed rubber. Goodyear, Firestone, Henry Ford came down there and started to develop industries to be able to take advantage of the rubber so they could use them in cars and vehicles all over the world. So you harvest it by making a slot in the tree, and when you put these little cups here, it comes into the cups, and they take it and put it into a pot, put it over a fire, and it comes out as a rubber ball. And that's how they process the rubber, and they sold the rubber to companies in America and around the world in rubber balls. So it was a huge industry in Manaus, and required a lot of people. There were people that were bonded servants that were Indians, natives there, but they also, I don't know if you know it, but Brazil imported more slaves than anywhere else in the world, and they used these slaves to harvest the rubber and also harvest sugarcane. But if you drop this rubber ball here, it bounces right up like a basketball, and this is what it came in. When the Europeans came there and the rubber industry started, they wanted to make it a European-type city. In fact, in the middle 1850s, the capital of Portugal was actually in Brazil. But they brought this opera house, a European opera house, with parts of it made in Scotland and Italy and in France. And this is right in the middle of the city. It was opened in 1896. So they wanted to duplicate and replicate a lot of the opera houses and the major things they had going on there. So inside the opera house It's opulent, beautiful, just like you see in Europe. And this sits in the middle of this city in northeastern Brazil, where you wouldn't guess it would be. So in any big city, there's a market. In Brazil, the Amazon River has over 3,000 species of fish in it. In the Mississippi River Basin, there's 150 species of fish. So this market we went to was absolutely amazing, the fish, the different types of fish. But a large part of the Brazilian diet in this area is fish, and that's how a lot of people live, but also a lot of people make money. These are called parrotfish. I hadn't seen these before, but they're pretty prevalent in the river. One of the biggest fish in the river is a striped bass, and I think Bill McCann has a trip planned down in this area to go fly fishing for striped bass. They're called peacock bass, and they get up to 40 or 50 pounds. Outside, they sell fruit and vegetables, of course, and probably not the cleanest place. This part of Brazil reminded me a little bit of the Dominican Republic when I was there. This is the boat that we traveled on, mostly on the Rio Negro, but also we spent the first day on the Amazon itself. You can see this room right here. That was my room. We had rooms on this floor, and the top was pretty wide open. Fortunately, we had air conditioning, which saved my bacon because it was so hot. I actually became dehydrated for about 3 days, and then took some electrolytes and got it going. But what we would do is go up the river and just pull in and tie up to a tree and do some exploring. So this was the accommodations. This is what my room looked like. This is what the view out my room looked like. This is actually on the Amazon River because you'll see it's a different color. This is inside the cabin. This is the bar and the main dining room. Beautiful Brazilian hardwoods. We would go in at night, and when we got in from exploring, and we would have drinks there, and we would talk about the day's trip. But this was all air conditioned, so we could make it go in here and have pretty good dinners. They served us a lot of fruit, a lot of fish, a lot of vegetables, and we eat pretty well. We had a chef on board, and she did a great job of keeping us fed. A lot of fruits. The limes were used for the national drink of Brazil, caipirinha is called, and this is made with what kind of like a rum drink that they have, very refreshing. If you've had a caipirinha before, it's really refreshing. The top of the boat, you can see, is exposed. Good viewing, but it's hot. It's hot. This is what we explored in. These are canoes. We had 2 canoes for the 12 people that we traveled with. As well as some guys that went with each, and a pilot with each one. And we pulled these behind the boat, but the boat would stop, and then we would go out and explore in the canoes. You can see they don't take a lot of water on. If it's rough at all, they can't go out, but it wasn't ever rough. It was just like this. That's what the forest looks like. That's what it looks like with the boat and the canoe, some of the people on the trip. And we would go right into the jungle with these boats. They had outboard motors on the back of them. We go right into the jungle. The leaders in each boat would have a machete, and we cut our way through. And why do we go in there? Mainly we were looking for animals, birds, and a lot of monkeys. Most of the animals in the jungle live in trees. They're not on the ground, and you'll see why. There's no place to live on the ground. It's just so dense. The jungle is so dense. That's another shot that gives you an idea what the density was like of the jungle going in. We would go out in the morning, come back and have lunch, and then go out again in the evening. And this is one of our trips out in the evening. We'd also go on hikes, and I'll show you one of our hikes later. But before we left and went up to the Rio Negro, we went to where the Amazon and the Rio Negro meet. There's only about 3 places in the world where you have this kind of thing happen, where you have the river, the Rio Negro on the left, and the muddy river, the Amazon on the right. And the reason the Amazon's muddy is because it starts up in the Andes, in Colombia and Brazil, and brings down snow water, just like the rivers around here do. But this is called the Meeting of the Waters. It's a famous place just out of Manaus, and it's a confluence of those two rivers. So how do people live? Well, because of the water, the fluctuations, 40 feet high, down to the dry season where it gets low, people live in houses on stilts. They have, the main way they get around is by boat. They travel by boat. There is one bridge on the Rio Negro, but it only goes 15 miles past the bridge and then it becomes jungle. So there's really very few roads. They even have their own churches out there, and they use these churches. They do have electricity to some of them. Very primitive electricity, but they do have that. This kind of gives you an idea of the expanse. Somebody asked me what it was like. It's like going out into San Juans. You look out, this is across the river, this is across part of the Amazon. And the Amazon, like I said, in the high season is over 100 miles wide, but right here was about 25 miles wide. And the Rio Negro gets 7 or 8 miles wide too in the time of year we were there. Because we were near the equator, you can see the equator in the previous slides, the sunsets are amazing. They're absolutely amazing sunsets there. This is part of the islands we went through, the archipelago. The trees, they say, well, those are short, scrubby trees. You got to look at them and say, those are trees that have adapted to water, but they're actually 40 feet of the tree that you can't see. And you go through these canals or waterways, and you wouldn't know if you're on the main river or on a tributary. It's just water and jungle everywhere. We traveled to different parts on the Rio Negro, and we'd explore in the boats. We'd see trees like this, and we'd say, well, they're just shrubs, but really they're 40 feet or more tall. And another example of the jungle and the trees and the size of the river. Again, sunsets, beautiful sunsets, and we would go out at night either on a boat or hiking at night as well. So this is what it was like hiking. It was 90 degrees, 90% humidity, and you had to cover yourself up because of the insects, particularly the ants. The ants were brutal there. We didn't see a lot of mosquitoes. They don't breed in that Rio Negro, but the ants, the army ants and the small brown ants could just eat you up, literally. And you couldn't touch anything. They told you don't grab a limb or a vine because the plants have adapted so they can survive. And a lot of them have these kind of spikes coming out of them. So it's like, going out in the brush here and grabbing something that like a nettle or something like that, because you're going to get nailed. Devil's Club comes to mind for me. So we went out one night and went on a hike, took spotlights. We're looking for owls, we're looking for lizards, we're looking for snakes. And we came back the next day on the trail that we just went on with the whole group. And we spotted this on the trail. And what this is jaguar poop. So this was fresh jaguar poop. Right here. This is poop from a jaguar. And what the guide said is, he said, we were probably being stalked last night by a jaguar. And he says, this is fresh. So we were right in there. We didn't see any jaguar. We saw a lot of animals. They're mainly at night creatures. We didn't see many of them. I don't know if you know what these are, but these are called Brazil nuts. The natives, one of the ways they make money besides fishing is harvesting Brazil nuts. Actually, the more Brazil nuts are grown in Bolivia than Brazil, but it's about a casing about the size of a small coconut. They use machetes and cut them open, and they take up a little nut. In fact, we had a couple times where families would come up to our boat and want to trade us Brazil nuts for fuel for their outboard engines. So we came across these quite a bit. Brazil nut trees are large. This tree is probably close to 1,000 years old here that we had our picture taken by, and certainly it it's pretty awe-inspiring to see the size of some of these trees in the Amazon as well. So a lot of people are like birds. I'm not a big bird guy, but I kind of tolerated it. But this is one of our young man who's he's doing his doctorate work on a certain type of bird, and he was trying to record the song the bird would make. So when we got to somewhere else, he could play the recording back to attract the bird. Travels by boat. This is an example of, this was really a nice boat that the family had, but they travel by boats, loud motors. You can hear them a long way. You don't see a lot of them, but they do. Families do get around. You can see it in here. That's basically a lawnmower engine with a long shaft so it can go in deep water and shallow water. This was a family we came upon that were getting this as a taxi ride back to their village. We visited one village, spent a lot of time there. A lot of the natives are the Indians in Brazil. Let me go back a little bit. Before Columbus arrived in Brazil, there were close to 13 million Indians or natives in Brazil. Today there are about 130,000. So at one time there's a huge population. And if you read another book, Mike mentioned Riverdale, but if you read another book called The Lost City of Z, it will talk about the civilizations that existed in the Amazon before Columbus. And these people have chosen to stay together as a tribe. There were about 60 in their tribe, but they're supported pretty well by the government so they can live in what would be their pretty good housing. You can see in the bottom here, this was the color of the water. Remember I talked about it being a color of tea, that was the color of the water. But they had a school there, they had a couple churches, they had a satellite dish, but they get around by boat. That's how they get around. Everybody has a boat. So some young families, we brought some things from here. We had a young mother, a young baby, and I think I'd given her a football, and they were really appreciative of what we brought for schooling and that sort of thing. The young man with a Spider-Man shirt on, but sitting on a boat. And I made a friend here. This is the shaman, or this is the kind of the doctor, leader of the tribe. She's the one that knows how to use the trees and plants for medicine and that. And I bought a basket from her, and you can see she's really excited that I'm giving her a hug there. So I was obviously having more fun than she was. But they're not big people. These are native people. Most of the Brazilians are a mixture of European, African, native Brazilian. The largest Japanese gathering in the world of people is in Brazil, outside of Japan too. So it's an interesting country, really a cosmopolitan country. A lot of monkeys. We saw a lot of monkeys. There's over 300 species of monkeys. In fact, when Barack Obama was president, they discovered another species and they named it after him. So this is a tanner. This is a monkey that we saw along the way. This is a howling monkey. Has anybody ever heard of howling monkeys? The eeriest sound in the world. They howl at night, and it sounds just like somebody screaming. This is a sloth. This is a sloth, very slow-moving monkey. That's a spider monkey that we saw along the way. We would see more birds than monkeys, but we saw quite a few monkeys there. They have a lot of monkeys in the jungle. And these are called night monkeys. These were baby monkeys that we spotted one day. They came out to see what we were doing around their place. So we went out at night, like I said, we spotlight. So one night we were able to find a small, they don't call it an alligator, but it's a caiman. It's a Brazilian or an Amazon alligator. The big difference is they have long snouts, but they live up to 80 years old. This one's 5 years old, so they grow pretty slowly. And consequently, we got a chance to hold it and touch it, but we did see some big ones, but we obviously didn't want to pick those up because they get about 8 feet long. Birds, a lot of birds, bird paradise here. Beautiful birds. I even got some pictures of some. So, toucans, a lot of toucans around. We see a lot of those flying around. Macaws. Macaws, the national bird of Brazil. We saw, not a lot, but we saw some macaws. Beautiful birds. Parrots. There's only about 100 different varieties of parrots in the Amazon. So we saw parrots, a lot of parrots. This parrot is eating those berries off that tree. Woodpeckers, this is a termite, actually a termite colony that's taken over this tree, and the woodpeckers is going in and taking termites. Parrots, a lot of varieties of parrots. See parrots around a lot. And this is another toucan. This is a smaller one, a miniature toucan. We saw frogs. This one, fortunately, isn't poisonous, but they have a frog that's a multicolored frog that actually is called a poison dart frog. The natives used it to make the poison darts out of that they would, when the people first came, they would kill them with that because their arrows had poison in them. So we saw some frogs once in a while. This is called a green glass frog. We found this one at night. It's pretty rare. Saw a lot of spiders. This one's about 6 inches across. Had a huge web. It must be the size of that screen up there when we saw it. Butterflies. This isn't the most spectacular one. They have these blue, shiny ones, and they're absolutely beautiful. But they move around all the time, so they were hard to get a picture of. But this was a one that I thought was pretty beautiful that we had. The other thing we saw a lot of was dolphins, freshwater dolphins. And in the Rio Negro and in the Amazon, they have what are called pink dolphins and gray dolphins. And these pink dolphins, these are pink dolphins. They grow up to be about 500 pounds. They eat up to 200 pounds of fish a day. And they're everywhere in Europe. We saw them every day. And it shows you how much fish is in the rivers there because they can exist and they do pretty well. We also saw gray dolphins too. And everywhere we went, it seemed like we saw dolphins. And that was a surprise for me. I didn't expect to see that. Flowers, orchids, kind of a bottle brush type flower. There were a lot of natural flowers, orchids, aloe vera oil comes out of that plant. Another orchid. There were beautiful flowers everywhere. A lot of animals and flowers and fish. So one of the things I wanted to do, I like to fish. I wanted to fish for piranhas. So we talked the captain of the boat into letting us go out. They had a reel, it's a handheld reel that you go out and fish with. You can see this is my cousin holding it. And you use chunks of meat, like chunks of steak. And you put it on the hook and you kind of jig it, and when they bite, you bring it up and bring it in. So this is a piranha. I thought they'd be smaller, but most of the piranhas were fairly good size. I mean, this is probably 6 or 8 inches long, and they're fat. And they have sharp teeth. Really sharp teeth. You can see we use steel leader on them, but those teeth are, and you use the needle nose plier to get the hook out. But they are nasty animals. So we caught about 10. We went out and caught about 10, and we came back and we brought them to the cook, the chef on the boat, and we said, we'd like to eat these, see what they taste like. So she made piranha soup for us. That's piranha soup. And I found out later that Brazilians think that's a pretty cool thing because they consider it an aphrodisiac. But at the time, we had no idea. The soup tasted pretty good, but it is seen as kind of a delicacy in Brazil to eat piranha and do that. So the trip was over. I spent one more day in Manaus. I went to a stadium that overlooks the river there, overlooks the beach, and I was with about 10,000 Brazilians watching Brazil play Switzerland in the World Cup. And so one of my highlights was they're nuts on soccer in Brazil. They're absolutely nuts. And the yellow jerseys, number 10, anybody know who number 10 was for Brazil? Niemeyer. He's the national hero now. He's their famous soccer player. But we had an amazing rain shower. By the way, it rained pretty much every day. Come through, but it didn't stop the people from staying there and watching the game. So they had 3 large screens set up, got the beach in the background, and then the Rio Negro River right there. So that was a fun, one of the girls' highlights, going to that. And they sell beer out of a 10-gallon can and walk around. It was free to get in. They searched you to get in, but it was free. That was an exciting thing. And so people ask, did you go swimming when you were on the Amazon, the Rio Negro? And one of the things I tell them is, yes, I did. I have proof that I went swimming. Actually, I went swimming twice. It was so hot that we jumped into the river a couple times. But I have to give you a caveat to that. I was not the first one in. So there was always 2 or 3 people in the river before I went. But I actually did go swimming a couple times in the Amazon. Because the water's so high this time of year, it spreads the piranha out. They don't all congregate. If you were to go swimming later on in the year with the dry season, you would probably get out of the water because they'd probably eat you up. But anyhow, I did swim in the Amazon. I did go swimming. You can see the water wasn't exactly the cleanest looking water, but it was refreshing. This is our group. That's the crew. The person that did kind of the interpreting for us is Raphael, right in the middle there. One of the things that happened right when we started out is the fuel pump on the boat went down, so they had to go back to Manaus and replace it. And so they went in those little canoes, and these mechanics and that worked all night that first night so we could get off the next day. So amazing people, amazing crew, very friendly, easy to get along with. They didn't speak much English, and I didn't speak much Portuguese, but that was okay. We got along fine with that. So, final slide, just final thoughts. This was kind of a sight to me that I really liked. The people on the boat, the size of the river, the immenseness of the jungle. It's just an amazing place. Would I go back? Probably not. It's kind of a once-in-a-lifetime experience, but I would recommend if you want to do a truly unique experience, go to a place that has really nice people and good food, where you feel welcome, where they actually like Americans. It's a pretty cool place to go. So thank you for letting me share this with you. It was a great experience, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me today. Thank you.
Here you go, Mark. We have one of these famous pins for you for going down there. And I was told that piranha and spotted owl taste the same, but I'm not sure.
Probably. This says Janicki Wagner, by the way.
All right, let's see, is Stephanie still here? So therefore, Joseph's here. Okay, that's good. And Doug's still here, right? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and without any further ado, we're going to see if I can do this bell.